Hello, I'm Soraya Mia and you're watching It's About Youth. Now, from honing diplomacy skills to mastering public speaking, Model UN, or MUN, is a breeding ground for future leaders. Now, we're going to explore how participating in MUN equips young minds with the tools to navigate complex global issues and lead with confidence. With our guest for today, Dr. Benjamin Barton, Head of School and Associate Professor in the School of Politics and International Relations of University of Nottingham Malaysia, or UNM, as well as Emmanuelle Gerard, Secretary General of UNM's Youth Society Working Committee. It's great to have both of you here today.
Thank you for having us.
Now, the University of Nottingham Malaysia hosted MUN Conference Champions Cup 2024. Now, how did it go? What were the goals, and perhaps did you achieve it? Maybe you'd like to go first?
Right. Well, it was. I think it was fantastic, to be honest with you. I was invited to give a keynote speech as part of the opening ceremony, so I got to see what all of the organising committee had done in terms of the work and the legwork behind the event, on top of seeing the number of participants. And yeah, I was blown away, to be honest. It was really professionally organised. So that's fantastic. I mean, as far as the School of Politics and International Relations is concerned, we want to support our students to help them to grow and to, nurture their talents and skills. And one of our kind of teaching objectives is to focus on diplomacy, because we believe it gives the students the right skill set in this day and age. So we provided assistance as best as we could to the organising committee, but they did all the work effectively through their umbrella organisation.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the organization committee, that you're a part of it, and it's not the first time that you worked in this this conference or MUN in general. But this time, I'd like to ask, how do you think Model UN actually helps to prepare, young minds or the youth to meet the future demands?
I would say one thing that it definitely helps with is when it comes to critical thinking, because a lot of what you do in Model UN is researching, analyzing different foreign policy, but also understanding different issues, because different countries have different perspectives that you might need to take into consideration. So doing research in terms of what can you say, what shouldn't you say, who's your friends, and during the council sessions itself is really important. But it also teaches participants how do you communicate with one another more effectively, because each speech is roughly 2 minutes long. So you have to get your point across, but also be able to kind of banter with one another, be able to engage with one another as well. So it's definitely a place where you can learn teamwork, communication skills, and just being able to think on the spot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like when you talk about, critical thinking, because I think that's very, very important, not only for future leaders, but just, as anyone to navigate the future in general. So maybe Dr. Barton, you'd like to explain a little bit of the importance of fostering critical thinking and interest in current affairs when it comes to building future leaders.
Right. So obviously critical thinking is what we want our students to develop over the course of their studies with us. It's absolutely vital in this day and age, as you mentioned, because we live in times when there's access to so much information about the world, but the difficulty is knowing what are the trustworthy sources, exposing students to various sources of information, but also voices, so that they can also learn to develop a more nuanced idea of the world. And I mean, through our degree programs at undergraduate and master's level, we aim to expose students to a broad array, not only of thematic topics, of area studies, but also of methods, which would allow them to have the necessary tools to decipher the complexity of the world in which we live in today. And that is a world whereby there are events taking place across the other side of the planet, which have a direct impact in the societies in which we live in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that point is also, I'm glad that you brought it up, especially when you talk about exposing students to critical thinking and to different sources, because perhaps I'd like to get your thoughts on this. When it comes to a certain issue, a random issue, it could be global issue, local issue even, like how do you think, personal experience, like how do you decide on what side you take? How do you do the necessary prep or the research? How do you kind of come to a conclusion?
I think for me, growing up, I definitely relied a little bit more on what my parents would say. But as I grew older, like doing Model UN or just like entering university as well, it definitely taught me, you know, like fact checking myself, and also kind of remind myself like different biases I might already have. So kind of reviewing it, looking from different perspectives, and also hearing what my friends have to say. I think that definitely kind of shaped what I would like consider my stance on different things. Yeah.
Now, why don't you share more on your personal experience working with MUN this year, and how is it different than the previous years?
Right. So previously I wasn't part of the committee for Champions Cup, but this year it was kind of part of my term as president for the club as well. So it was really interesting, and it was really challenging for us because a lot of the committee members, it was our first time running a conference this big and kind of wanting to see something new happen in the scene. So we had a crisis conference format, so everything was interconnected and everything was really well engaged. So we were just trying our best to make sure the participants had a great time, the people involved, they were all just working together. I think that we definitely could see that people were having fun, because whenever we asked for feedback, like while we were doing our rounds, they would say, oh, it's great, it's great. I think for us, it was definitely very fulfilling because we could see that our brainchild or like the passion that we had was really put out there, and that there were people who could see what we were doing and they were enjoying their time as well. Yeah.
If I could just add on to that,
Sure.
because it wasn't just about Model United Nations, which would allow, you know, students to be exposed to very specific topics, you know, perhaps topics they're not used to covering, whether they're at school, high school, international school, or even colleges. It was about also, you know, fostering a sense of almost community, because when, you know, I was attending it and watching the students on our campus, you know, they were involved in so many activities which were put together by the committee. It's a real eye-opener, and I think it's learning by having fun. That's what we want to encourage as well in the School of Politics and International Relations, is that we expose students, of course, to traditional forms of academic work, you know, attending lectures, seminars, but we also want to help foster this sense of you can go to university and you can learn whilst having fun. You can develop that skill set, which you then take into the working world. So this is why the school and the university felt it absolutely essential to help support this taking place on our campus.
So you would say that it's definitely learning whilst having fun, and you also get to interact with you know, other participants.
Yeah, definitely.
And we were speaking earlier. You talked about like there were a lot of younger participants. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that. How was your experience working with the younger generations?
I think for me, because I'm kind of considered pretty old already. I'm already
How
20.
old
I'm 20. So,
very old.
So a lot of delegates now, they're 13, 14, so they're really young. But whenever I see them debating or even just having conversation with them, they're always so eager to learn, and they're always up for a challenge. For them, they really enjoy it, like the crisis format, like having news updates happening all the time. So we had like a Twitter update thing to know what's going on in different councils, and just like a lot of things happening all at once, and they really enjoyed it. I would say they're the type of people who they really have a lot to prove, and at the same time they have nothing to lose, so they're just going all out. Even though they might not be the most confident in themselves, they'll still put themselves out there, they'll still ask for feedback, and they won't stop like learning as they're going as well. So I think they really had fun. They had things like sports tournament and everything, so they're really just running around everywhere, like working together and stuff. So it was really fun, like seeing them engage one another.
When it comes to, you know, like topics that you that the conference discusses and all of that, right? And then when dealing with people as young as 12, when we talk about complex global issues, was there any challenges to kind of like relay that to that gen? Or?
I would say there were a few, because when we first started planning for it, we were expecting an older demographic, so people who were in college or university. But when we got like the influx of like younger students, we realized, okay, maybe our topics were a bit too challenging, because they were very hyper specific as well. Our academics team really like put a lot of effort into it. But then when we got feedback from them, they said it was difficult, but it wasn't something that they found was a problem. They were just like learning and adapting.
Right.
And they had also like chairpersons, like older or like more senior, like Model UN people as well, like just guiding them. And they definitely learned from it. Like first few days, it was a bit awkward, a bit hard to navigate. But by the end, by the last session, they were really like going all out. They were like arguing here and there. There was a lot of debate and bantering. So I think it's the type of thing where it gives them a good challenge. And
I get it.
yeah.
And I think also the selection of topics are almost reflective of their generation, right?
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence, biopiracy, child rights. I mean, these are the kind of things which they're going to be, you know, discussing, learning about as they grow older in any case. So I think this is simply exposing them to their future as well.
Yeah, speaking of topics, how do you come about, you know, about deciding the topics, and what are your thoughts on you know, the whole procedure of the working committee? Maybe I'll get your thoughts on this first.
I mean, I've actually myself never participated in a Model United Nations.
Oh, okay.
And in a way, when I saw the organization, it kind of took me back to my years as a student, and I wished I'd done that, to be fair.
Yeah, listening about it makes me wish I've done that.
No, really, it's engrossing, actually. And I mean, before I address your question, what I thought was really nice was the fact that they give you that sense of things are happening all the time. So you can't just go to a room, negotiate a position, and come back to the plenary. It's, you know, there'll be news dropped as if this was real life. I mean, you know, perhaps sometimes exaggerated for the benefit of the game, but in terms of the choice of not only the topics but the structure of either the member states or the different organizations, I think it's given the fact that you've got 100 delegates who are of different ages, different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds. I think it was really well chosen. Very stimulating, and I think that's why, even though perhaps it was a bit daunting at first for the younger ones, eventually, you know, they got very much involved because of the way that everything was so well organized.
Speaking of issues and topics, right, what do you think, which issue stands out the most for this year's MUN? You think, you know, like certain issues are more, I would say, interesting to the younger generation when we talk about, you know, climate change, and as Dr. mentioned just now about AI. What are your thoughts on this? I
think the participants really enjoy things that relate to conflicts, actually. Like when it comes to, because we have a security council, like mock council in conference, they really enjoy it when there's like a different conflict being brought up. So some of them, they wanted more of that. So I think things like biopiracy and AI, it was something that they really engaged in as well. When I was sitting through some of the council sessions, we had delegates who were really creative in their ideas. It took me a bit like aback at first. I was like, oh, did not think of that. But I think it just goes to show that they're really creative in things. And yeah, I think whenever it comes to a topic that's a bit more contemporary, a bit more like brought up more often now, especially like with conflicts and stuff, they definitely enjoy it a lot. They enjoy learning about things that are happening right in front of their eyes. I think things like, because we had a topic on like cultural repatriation as well, so it was that thing where they really enjoyed engaging with it. There was a lot of accusations being thrown back and forth, like for fun, but it definitely showed that they were engaging one another and they really embodied the spirit of like the country they're representing also. Yeah.
So I can see that this MUN definitely gives all of these participants an interest into current affairs and whatnot. But how do you think that this could be carried forward, you know, after they graduate, and also into their working life, and also perhaps if they were to even join politics or join anything that is related? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, of course, that's what we aspire towards, that you don't just come to do the degree, you leave university with a passion for international relations, for political affairs, for looking at domestic politics, for looking at trans-regional, global affairs. And that not only that, but you also have the reflexes which come to learning how to decipher, you know, where the drivers are behind specific issues, where the power dynamics lie, those kind of things. So, of course, that's tailored into all of our programs, but we encourage students also to, you know, carry that into, for example, associations. The Model United Nations is one of them, societies across the university, which also will allow a certain degree of networking. And those are the kind of, you know, relations and bonds which are created, which will carry over into working life and would allow, you know, I think, students and graduates to maintain a certain interest in global affairs, discuss it amongst themselves, and in a way think back positively to their experience as students at the university.
Yep, I definitely agree that one of the key to success is networking. Yeah. What do you think, or why do you think networking is important at this point in life? And do you think that you know, there are any challenges that you face in networking at your age currently?
I think for me, one thing about it is that it creates this community that you have, like what Dr. Barton mentioned also, with like-minded individuals or people who just share an interest. I think with Model UN, it is a pretty niche thing. Some of my friends, like outside of my university, doesn't really follow with it. They think it's a little bit nerdy and stuff. But when I joined Model UN and like saw the community that it brought, it was really fun because you get to meet people who really enjoy learning as well, and they really enjoy like debating on different issues and stuff. So I think that's one thing. But I think another thing is that it also gives you that sense of camaraderie. You're all working together towards a certain goal. And so like the university life, it is pretty daunting as well. But when you go to it with like friends that you really can connect with, I think it just creates a bit of a more like harmonious feeling. It's an experience you can really remember for the rest of your lives. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think, you know, like with the rise of social media nowadays, like I mentioned earlier, networking is very important to be successful in the future, whatever sector you join. You know, social media could be a tool, but it could also be used against us in any way. So what are your thoughts about, you know, how can the next generation use social media to actually improve their networking in the future?
I think for me, I think when it comes to social media, I really enjoy using it to like network with people and stuff. So whenever it's like at an event or anything, like, oh, what's your Instagram or what's your LinkedIn, for example. Like I'm at the age where I ask for LinkedIn and stuff. And I think it's really great because sometimes you don't see these people outside of events, or you don't see these people outside of, you know, like a special moment, like a one-off thing. So being able to engage with them and see what they're doing in their lives as well, it's really fulfilling because I get to see some of them, you know, going out for activism work or going out and really doing like great things with their own lives as well. So I think seeing that, it does kind of reassure me that, oh yeah, okay, there is something more that this generation has to offer. And I think it can get a little bit tricky because we're all a bit too, like, you know, addicted to our phones sometimes. But I mean, if you use it right, or if you're talking to people and you're learning from it, I think it's not too bad. Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to use it right, I
Yeah.
guess. So what do you think UNM's initiatives or roles is in to promote greater student participation in you know, programs like this, programs to, you know, better their future in general?
Well, we are definitely looking to invest in diplomacy as part of our curriculum offering at undergraduate level. So we, of course, encourage our students to take part in these kind of Model United Nations is one association. We have other student associations linked to the school. We are investing in our kind of infrastructure to improve learning when it comes to diplomacy. We're looking to build links with organizations here in Malaysia which can also bring in practitioners who can then teach students about, you know, what it's like to be a diplomat, because some of our alumni are, you know, for example, working for the Malaysian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So they often come in and share experience about what it's really like behind the scenes, what it's like to be at the United Nations representing Malaysia, for instance. So that's definitely, those are the kind of initiatives that we're looking to put forward in the next couple of years. But I mean, generally speaking, we want, you know, our students to be, by the time that they graduate, you know, comfortable in skills such as public speaking, talking about any aspect of international relations, and, you know, as mentioned earlier, kind of having those reflexes, those inbuilt reflexes as to, you know, what is real from what might not be in an age of kind of disinformation as well. I think you touched upon social media. It's of course something that we can't escape either in a university, and it does have fantastic advantages as well for young people today. But we also want to inculcate that there's also that risk, that there's a lot out there, and you also need to have that ability to decipher what is real from what is not. How
do you actually, you know, navigate that challenge?
I mean, we of course can raise this in discussions in seminars, you know, and one-on-one discussions with students. We can reiterate over the course of their studies the risks inherent of using social media, but also using social media as part of studies. Artificial intelligence adds an additional degree of complexity nowadays, because there's a reflex of going towards those portals to provide solutions for essay writing, so on and so forth. Yeah. But to be honest with you, you know, I trust the students. I think there's also inherent trust with students, and from my experience, very seldom do we have issues pertaining to this. And I think actually students take on board our advice and make great use of the technology which is available to them.
Yeah, when we talk about, the use of artificial intelligence, I've always actually wondered personally, because during my time when I was in university, I don't think there was anything as close to ChatGPT. So how do you actually, like you said, you trust the students. How can you actually, I don't know how to even put it into words. It's like, how do you ensure that students don't use this the wrong way?
Right, well, I mean, obviously we have to be upfront from the very beginning, explain, I mean, the thing is, ChatGPT has followed on platforms such as Wikipedia, which has always been a go-to for some students, the first thing that you find when you're Googling something. And, we just have to state, honestly, that from the get-go, these are the kind of sources that you want to avoid at all costs. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, it would be disingenuous of us to say that you cannot use these platforms or this software, because ultimately there are advantages to it as well. So I think we just have to learn ourselves to measure the advantages and to try and encourage the proper usage of it in an academic context. But of course there will always be exceptions where there's misuse, and we have to live with that too. But I mean, on the whole, I think that element of trust, we trust the students, and the students know that we give them that inherent trust in terms of using it properly, that they know that they shouldn't really deviate from the expectation. I think generally that's enough for them to make good use of it.
Mm-hmm. So Emma, as part of the working committee of Model UN, I'm sure you have utilized AI or ChatGPT for many of the research perhaps. Do you think that it has helped a lot?
I think for us, we do try to steer away from using AI for research specifically, mainly because we don't really know how accurate information is sometimes. But using it to kind of generate what ideas that you might have, it has been really helpful, because there are some days where my team and I were really tired from assignments and everything. So we just Google okay, what's a topic we can use to discuss. Then we generate it and we're okay, you know what? That's something we can work with. Let's see what we can play around. So it's really good for generating ideas. But I think what Dr. Barton said, you have to do your research itself. You have to you use it for the ideas, but then you build it upon yourself. I think that's the skills that we want to learn as well. How do you research better? How do you use prompts that people might have for you? But also how do you put yourself in there? Because if you're just generating it, then it's not really your work. It's just an AI's work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now we have about just 2 minutes left. Maybe you'd like to both, just explain what was your best memories of this recent Champions Cup, MUN's Champions Cup. Maybe you'd like to go first?
I think for me, because I was working behind the scenes a lot of it, so most of my time was just on Discord fixing people's problems. But I think one memory that I have is that we had a few delegates who were representing countries part of BRICS. I think it's a really, it's pretty popular now because of the recent news. But they were discussing the entire time during the conference, late at night, 2, 3 a.m. They're still discussing and stuff. And then I remember seeing the news later on that Malaysia was interested in joining. And I thought to myself, I wonder if these kids predicted this in a council session, because they did bring it up. And I was okay, I think that's a little memory that I have. Little moments where it feels like you're predicting the future, even if you're just having a casual conversation or during council session where it feels so far away from the world, but at the same time, you're part of it. You're part of making that future. Yeah.
And you?
Yeah, I mean, well, from being blown away from the opening ceremony, I think really the diversity of the different age groups, where they were coming from, but also the professionalism of the choice of the topics, the formations within the Model United Nations, that was really, really very impressive. And actually, when I looked at that, because I do use simulations in my own teaching, I think I have so much homework to do in order to improve, because really it was so well organized.
It's great to know, especially your point when you talk about how is it possible that because of this, students are predicting or understanding current affairs and issues more than they should even be understanding. But it's actually it's a great initiative for sure, and we're hoping that we can connect this to real life and not just a simulation. But that's all we have. I mean, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us on It's About Youth. Now, I was speaking to Professor Benjamin Barton, Head of School and Associate Professor in the School of Politics and International Relations at UNM, as well as Emmanuelle, Gerard, Secretary General of UNM's Youth Society Working Committee. I'm Saramia, and we'll see you again soon.